Hello and a very warm welcome to bonus class number 2 on quant and financial reporting and analysis. So this class is for you if you have signed up for the exam in June and you have access to the CFA curriculum. Okay, so you can start with the pre-course reading, start studying. You might be interested in watching as well if you want to find out a little bit more about the curriculum. But it's going to be most relevant for you if you have already decided you're going to start studying for the June level 1 exam. Okay. So just a little recap of why you're studying for the CFA exam. It's very important to remain motivated throughout because there is a lot of studying to do. Okay. You are going to gain real-world expertise as a result of going through the program because the CFA Institute does annual surveys with employers, regulators, industry experts in order to keep the curriculum up to date and relevant to what you need to know in the real world. You will get career recognition. You will stand out from the crowd. Employers know that completing the CFA exams really requires a lot of dedication and that you have a good knowledge base after completing them. Ethical grounding, because you will study ethics as part of the program. You will join a global community of around 135,000 CFA charter holders around the world. And we know that employers demand the CFA charter. Okay, so the top, as you can see here, the top 11 global employers are JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, UBS, Royal Bank of Canada, HSBC, Wells Fargo, Credit Suisse, Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, BlackRock and Citigroup. So what will you learn? You've got levels 1, 2 and 3. Okay, level 1 focuses on investment tools, level 2 on asset valuation and level 3 on portfolio management. Okay, so you build up the level, I guess the level of difficulty as you go through the program. Level 1 is going to seem quite hard to begin with because it's very broad. There's a lot of material to cover. Level 2 goes deep into asset valuation, and level 3 in some ways is a little bit easier because there isn't so much new content, but it's about, as it says here, synthesis and evaluation of what you already know. Plus there's quite a lot of new material on behavioural finance, which I think is very interesting, and also on individual and institutional investors. At each level, you cover 10 topics, which are listed here, so ethics, quants, economics, financial reporting and analysis, corporate finance, equity investments, fixed income, derivatives and alternatives. Alternatives include real estate, hedge funds, private equity, commodities, infrastructure, and then portfolio management and wealth planning. Okay, so really nice broad syllabus, covers everything you need to know if you want to work in a finance role. Also, you get some regulatory waivers. So in Brazil, the CVM exempts candidates who have passed the CFA Program Level 3 exam from the knowledge and competency requirements that you need to register as a portfolio manager. So that means you get a partial exemption from the CGA certification. Sorry, that's a separate thing, but ANBIMA has granted a separate, a partial exemption from the CGA. So if you want to do if you work for an ANBIMA firm and you want to, as a portfolio manager, you need to have the CGA. You are not going to need to do all of the exams if you have got the CFA charter. Research analysts. So CVM exempts candidates who have passed level 2 from the knowledge of business requirements to register as research analysts. You must still do the exam on local rules and regulations. And then there are some other exemptions as well. Okay, so if you want to work as a securities consultant, or if you, as a pension fund manager. Okay, so there is more information on the CFA website, which you can look up if you fall into any of these categories. Okay, so it's important to know about that. Okay, our methodology. So we focus in the classroom mainly on conceptual material, the really most important concepts for you to be able to pass the exam. So these concepts, although we can't predict questions, we know these concepts are very important in finance theory, so it is likely that they will be tested, okay, highly likely. CAPM, capital asset pricing model, yield to maturity, Net present value and internal rate of return, elasticity, LIFO, last in, first out, and FIFO, first in, first out, which are inventory valuation methods, are all core subjects which are highly likely to be tested. And then we have non-core subjects. And the focus of these bonus classes is to cover the pre-course reading, which is focused on factual learning. And the idea behind that is to make things easier for you so you can focus on the core concepts once the course starts. Okay, so we've got some areas like auction markets, Dow theory, structure notes, CPI bias, histograms. These things are not covered in any depth at all in the course because we focused on the core subjects. So if you can do pre-course reading beforehand, you'll be in a really good position once the course starts, which will make things easier for you. Okay. So as it says at the bottom here, any individual item here is less frequently examined than core subjects, but the exam will have a significant number of questions from these topics. So don't ignore them. They will pick you up help you pick up some extra marks, but they're not core. You might not have a question on one of these topic areas. So it's at the moment about getting breadth in your reading of the factual areas rather than the concepts. So we are preparing for the June exam now. Okay, the deadline for early reservations enrollment, early enrollment, CFA Institute deadline just passed, so hopefully you've signed up and taken advantage of that. If not, we're in the standard registration fee deadline period. Okay, so still sign up, get the material once you sign up from CFA Institute. Okay, and you can see there have been some changes here to the topic weights. So in the box on the left-hand side, you've got topic areas, the 10 topic areas, and then the 2019 weights and the 2018 weights. And a couple of things that are interesting to note here, financial reporting and analysis has gone down in weight from 20% to 15%. It's still got the largest weight, it's actually the same as ethics in the curriculum, 15%, but it's not as important as it was before. And you'll also notice there have been some other small changes in the other areas, okay, but the main one is this change in FRA. I mean, corporate finance, you can see as well, actually has increased from 7% to 10%. And today's class, we're going to focus on quants, which has gone slightly down in importance in weight from 12 to 10%, and then FRA 20 to 15%. Okay. We don't know, just completing what is on this slide, so we don't know what the exact pass mark is for the exams, but we know around 40% of people pass level 1. I say to suggest to students you should aim in the practice exams to get around 70% in order to feel confident that you should pass the real exam. And the exam will be 2 3-hour exams, okay, on a Saturday in June or in December. Next one in June. Each paper consists of 120 freestanding multiple choice questions. Okay, so that means if you get one wrong, it doesn't impact the others. You have 3 possible answers, and given that each exam is 180 minutes long or 3 hours long, you have 1.5 minutes per question. All topics are examined in each paper, laid out in the same order, which is this order here in the box on the left-hand side. And that's the same order as the CFA curriculum. In the course, we changed the order a bit because there are certain topics that we think are better to do earlier. But broadly, we do follow this order. Majority of the questions are not numeric, so actually you're going to see lots of questions which will test your conceptual understanding or show that you've memorized certain piece of knowledge, some fact. So bonus classes, this is where we are at the moment. We've already had a getting started class, which was an orientation class on the 17th of September, and bonus class number 1, which was an introductory class focusing on ethics. Then the exam registration deadline actually got moved to the 17th of October from the 10th, got extended. Okay, and then here we are today on the 19th of October doing Introduction to Quants and Financial Reporting. And don't worry, if you miss any of the classes, you can watch them on YouTube. Okay, so go to SHP Financial Training on YouTube and you can see the recording. Okay, so the prep course starts on the 29th of January with a success in the exam class. Our prep course is split into 2 teaching phase parts with a halfway there exam in the middle. on the 9th of March next year. And then we've got a diagnostic exam on the 27th of April, followed by a feedback class and then a revision phase. Okay, and then the exam itself is on the 15th of June. So our methodology works as learning, practicing, consolidating. So you go through all of the material once in the learning or the teaching phase of the course. And then we've got the review phase where we do lots of practice questions in class and we go over the most important concepts again. And then you have consolidation through doing practice exams. So we recommend you take a week off work at the end of the course in order to have some time to do the practice exams, which are provided by CFA Institute. You actually get currently 3 practice exams from CFA Institute, so that lots of opportunities to practice. And it's really important because you need to get fast at recalling the knowledge, and that comes through doing the practice exams under timed conditions. And not only doing the exam, but also reviewing it. So it takes you 6 hours to do a practice exam. It will also take you around 6 hours to review it to make sure you don't make the same mistakes again. So that's really important. Otherwise, you'll actually find you are potentially making the same mistakes and not improving. So we give you detailed feedback after doing the halfway there mock exam and also the diagnostic exam in order to help you improve so you don't make the same mistakes again. Okay, so this is a selection of readings which are we've set as pre-course reading, and it's taken from the full list of all 58 readings. Okay, this is provided to you in our study plan. If you have not got our study plan already, please just ask us for it. Okay, you can call us or you can fill in the form, our enrollment form for the bonus classes, or ask our consultant Anna. Okay, we are accessible, so just ask us if you haven't got this yet. And you can see which so you've got the study sessions on the left-hand side, the reading number, okay, in the second column, the importance of the reading, the title of the reading, suggested total number of hours, and then the suggested number of hours of pre-course reading. And then the bonus class that covers those specific readings. So all of these readings set for home study. You could spend longer on any of these readings. Okay, we've set a guideline number of hours so that you can get through them all in order to have done the pre-course reading before the start of the course on the 29th of January. Okay, so we've got a study guide as well, study plan and study guide, which we're happy to send to you. Just please let us know if you want those. And then we'll have a little quiz at the beginning of the course just to test the pre-course reading. Okay, so how do you do the reading? Well, when you sign up for the CFA exam, you're going to get the curriculum from CFA Institute, and that contains all of the readings that you need to do and all of the knowledge you need for the exam. Okay, it is not really enough just on its own, though. You have to be able to apply it, do practice questions, and get exam ready. Okay. Also focus on the most important things, which is what we do in the course. Okay, so for the pre-course reading, review the LOS, that's the learning outcome statements related to the reading. So you can see some example learning outcomes at the bottom there for ethics. Those are what you need to master in order to be prepared for the exam. So the exam questions, every single exam question will be made based on one or more learning outcome statements. They will not ask any questions that are not based on learning outcome statements. That makes it sound easy, but there are around 500 learning outcome statements, so you've got quite a few to master. Okay, when you go through the reading, you should try to focus on achieving the learning outcome statement. So the readings can be quite long, quite extensive. Just keep the focus on the learning outcome statement. So you need to be reading actively and really be very awake. Choose a good time to study when you're not tired, if you can. So that you can really focus on those learning outcome statements. And then answer questions at the end of the reading within 24 hours of completing the reading. There is no point in reading and not doing any practice questions because you will not remember what you've read. You need to absorb that reading by applying the knowledge through the practice questions. It's really important to do that. Mark the questions you got wrong so that you can go back to them. Okay, you might need to go back into the reading if there's a problem with your understanding, if you haven't really understood a concept very well, or you haven't learned a fact very well, then you need to go back into the reading, make sure you learn it. I do not suggest that you take lots of notes. Because the curriculum is so extensive, you can end up with just spending a lot of time basically rewriting the curriculum. So what I suggest is you just make a list of things that you find difficult to remember, things to memorize, but just try to keep it short, because the way most people memorize or remember this material is through the practice questions, and that's how you should be aiming to learn, through practice questions, not through writing it down, because you might just write it down and still not remember it. Okay, so that's practicing the questions, applying the knowledge. So quants, 10% of the exam, study sessions 2 and 3, and you can see there are just 2 readings that are set as pre-course reading. Okay, so if you look at the final column on the right-hand side, you've got 1 hour of pre-course reading for reading 6 and 7. Both of those readings are critical. They're very important. They are actually conceptual readings, okay, but they are set as home study for you to get a head start on them before the course begins, and for you to practice using your calculators, okay, which is very important. Okay. Discounted cash flow applications, so again, that's lots of discounting. Okay, using your calculators again, HP 12C is what most people use. You can either use the HP 12C calculator or Texas Instruments calculator BA2+. You have got options. I actually, when I was studying, I used the BA2+, but most people in Brazil use the HP 12C. I have had students using both. Some students using BA2+, some using HP 12C. Generally, most people use the HP 12C, but use whichever one you're most comfortable with. Or get comfortable with whichever one you've got. So it's very important to be quick and comfortable, know how to do the calculations on your calculator in order to answer the questions quickly in the exam. And we do actually, in the first class of the course, go through all the settings that you need to have on your calculator and do practice questions on all of the calculations that are most common in the exam that you need to be very good at. And you can see here we've also got other topics, so statistical concepts and market returns, probability concepts that we cover in class, common probability distribution, sampling estimation, hypothesis testing, and technical analysis. So we actually have quite a lot of content in the class on hypothesis testing and probability, mostly hypothesis testing, which is an area that is conceptual. Students sometimes find it quite difficult, so we do spend quite a lot of time in class on that. Okay, so covers quite a few different areas. Get started with the time value of money and discounted cash flow applications readings. So this is just a summary of the pre-course reading to be done, which is contained in the Getting Started guide. So remember, please contact us if you would like the Getting Started guide and the study plan, and we will send them to you. So in the Getting Started guide, we have pre-course reading for each of the topic areas. So for quants, pre-course work, a good starting point. So this is just an introduction as to what we've got, which I'll explain what's included in quants. Pre-course work, a good starting point is to work through reading 6, the time value of money, and reading 7, discounted cash flow techniques. Rather than memorizing time value of money formula, you should master it using your approved calculator, which is BA2+ or HP 12C. Since in the real exam you will be expected to solve time value of money problems quickly. Mastery of your calculator will also help you when you progress to equity and fixed income valuation later in the curriculum. So you will need these techniques in other areas of the curriculum, which is why they are critical reading. And so this is a list of the learning outcome statements in reading 6. So there's quite a lot of content here. I'm not going to read it. You can get access to these learning outcome statements on the CFA Institute website. You will also see them once you have signed up for the exam at the beginning of the reading. So the learning outcome statements are listed at the beginning of each reading. You can see them before you start doing the reading. And reading 7, discounted cash flow applications. Okay, so you've got the techniques in reading 6. And then reading 7 is about applying those techniques to net present value and internal rate of return calculations. Okay, and also to some instruments, financial instruments like bank discount yields, holding period yields, effective annual yields, and money market yields for the instruments US Treasury bills and other money market instruments. Now, I don't want you to spend too long on these readings. It's just really to focus on using your calculator more than anything else, okay, because we will cover this again in the course, in the quants classes, and also again in fixed income and in equity. So there will be lots of opportunities to practice this. So moving on to financial reporting and analysis, this is now 15% of the exam. Don't worry, you are not expected to be an accountant. What you need to be able to do is analyze accounts. What do we mean by that? How the accounts work. You need to understand how the accounts work in order to analyze them, what the interaction is between the cash flow, income statement, and balance sheet. You need to know some key ratios which are used to analyze the performance of a company. You need to know the impact of different accounting policies on the comparability of accounts. So what adjustments have to be made between accounts, financial statements prepared under US GAAP, and financial statements prepared under International Financial Reporting Standards. Okay, so that's very interesting for people, particularly who work with companies that are listed on different stock exchanges and need to conform with different accounting policies. So analyze and make adjustments. There is repetition and overlap in the syllabus readings. So in the course, we reorder the topics so that they flow logically and there is no duplication. Okay, that's just an advisory note, but this is not going to affect you regarding the pre-course reading because the pre-course reading is just on two areas, financial statements analysis and introduction, and financial reporting standards. Okay, so just those two readings for pre-course reading. The other areas, understanding income statements, understanding balance sheets, understanding cash flows, and financial analysis techniques, which is one of the only four critical readings in the curriculum. And that last one, reading 26, is ratio analysis. So those ones are all covered in the course. And there are actually some other readings which are included in financial reporting and analysis and are covered in the course. Okay. So this is a critical area of the exam. Study session 6, which is set as home study, pre-course reading, sets the scene for accounting and the regulation that governs it. Study session 7 contains a detailed look at the accounts that impacts the key financial statements, income statement, balance sheet. Study session 8 takes an in-depth look at the accounting for inventories, long-lived assets, income taxes, and long-term liabilities and leases. So all of this is included in the course. Sorry, the numbering is a little bit wrong here, actually. So the introductory one is, I think I just, apologies guys, the slide is, right, okay. So study session 6 is the introductory one that assesses pre-course reading. Study session 7 covers income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, and financial analysis techniques. Study session 8 covers certain areas of the financial statement, so inventories, long-lived assets, which are property, plant, and equipment, income taxes, and non-current or long-term liabilities, which include bonds, so a company might issue bonds that needs to account for them, and also leases. And then study session 9 is on financial reporting quality and financial statement analysis, applications of it, and it talks about some of the accounting failures, so it's quite interesting, that chapter. So pre-course work, study session 6, which is largely background reading, so you should do this before the course starts, particularly if you are new to accounting. And you can see here the learning outcome statements which you will find in the reading. So for reading 21, you need to understand the background to accounting. So what's the role of financial reporting? Why do we do it? What's the purpose of financial statement analysis? Okay, to understand the company in order to make investment decisions, mostly. Describe the roles, for our purposes, describe the roles of the statement of financial position. So this is an introduction to the different financial statements. Supplementary information, so in the disclosures disclosure notes in the financial statements, and in management commentary we find additional information which will help us analyse a company. Then looking at the objective of audits, why do we have audits, what are the different audit opinions? Identify and describe information sources that analysts use in financial statement analysis besides annual financial reporting statements and supplementary information. So there are additional, for example, if you go to the investor relations section of a company's website, you will find additional information which can be useful. And then steps in the financial statement analysis framework. So how do we analyse financial statements? We have to gather information, interpret it, understand it, perform ratio analysis, etc. Okay. And then reading 22. Reading 22 is actually financial reporting standards, okay, not mechanics. So financial reporting standards, it should say here. And the learning outcome statements are correct. Okay, so describe the objectives of financial statements, describe roles and desirables. So this is all very factual information, and it's about how financial reporting standards are developed, okay, why we have them, the importance of them, global convergence of accounting standards too, which is one of the objectives of the International Accounting Standards Board, which sets the International Financial Reporting Standards. And interesting, the CFA curriculum looks at US GAAP and IFRS, so it's very useful from that point of view. So if you look at F, compare key concepts of financial reporting standards under IFRS and US generally accepted accounting principles reporting systems. Okay, so that's quite an interesting area to look at. Okay, and then just as a heads up for the next class, so we will cover corporate finance, which is 10% of the exam. Okay, and the home study reading is just reading 33, corporate governance and ESG is environmental, social and governmental factors, an introduction. So corporate governance, which is the control system within a company to make sure it's managed in the best interest of shareholders and it considers the interests of other stakeholders as well. And portfolio management, which is 6% of the exam, and you can see this home study reading on portfolio management and overview and risk management and introduction, so there's the introductory readings, and then also fintech in investment management, okay, which is a new reading for 2019 and is an interesting emerging area. Okay. And just to finish, if you have not yet signed up for the course, you can see we're offering discounts for early reservations until the 21st of December. Our courses, the course fees include all of the material that you need, and we have small class sizes, which means you will get lots of individual attention. We also have really very flexible learning options, so live online, as well as in the classroom on Avenida Paulista 2202, which is in Sao Paulo and is next to the Consolação metro station. And all of the classes are recorded, so you can watch them for up to a week after the class if you miss a class. So if you want to contact us, there's lots of contact information here. We've got a phone number, WhatsApp, corporate WhatsApp, email address, and website. Okay, so please contact us if you want more information. Keep up the studying. Please also send us your questions. You can see the CFA1 email address here, so if you have questions, please send them technical questions, and we'll be happy to hear from you and help you. Sucesso nos estudos, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.